Hello there, my name is Pavel Steinmoch and I will unveil the top news of recent days. Ukraine experienced the biggest attack on energy infrastructure on this day. The Russians launched 155 air targets and drones with explosives. Our Titans from the air defense and armed forces shot down 92 missiles and UAVs. In particular, 55 of 63 Shahed drones, 35 of 40 Ha-101 and Ha-555 cruise missiles, both Ha-59 guided air missiles, but none of the 12 Iskander-M ballistic missiles, 7 Kinjal aeroballistic missiles, 5 cruise missiles Ha-22 and 22 S-300, S-400 anti-aircraft guided missiles could not be shot down, and this once again indicates that Ukrainian air defense need to be strengthened. After all, 8 regions behind the front line were under the enemy's blows. The north, the south, west and center of Ukraine were attacked. In the east, on the front line, cruise missiles are not flying. The Russians use FAB there. As reported by the Minister of Energy of Ukraine, Herman Hoshchenko, the enemy launched the largest attack on Ukrainian energy infrastructure in recent times. The goal is not just to damage, but to try again, like last year, to cause a large-scale failure of the country's energy system, due to the impact and damage to power generation facilities, transmission and distribution systems. These were power outages in some regions and subscribers were disconnected. In addition, due to shutting, one of the power transmission lines feeding the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was cut off. Among the targets of Russian terrorists are not only power plants and energy supply lines, but also a dam across the Dnipro, ordinary residential buildings and even a trolley bus. Russia is at war against the ordinary life of people.
Russian missiles have no delays, unlike aid packages for Ukraine. Shahed drones have no indecision, unlike some politicians. It is critical to understand the cost of delays and postponed decisions. Patriot systems must protect Kharkiv and Zaporizhzhia. Air defense is required to protect people, infrastructure, homes and dams. Our partners know exactly what is needed. They can definitely support us. These are necessary decisions. Life must be protected from this. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on social network X.
For example, almost 20 rockets were launched at Zaporizhzhia, which the Kremlin considers its territory. At night, they aimed at critical infrastructure. There were 2 direct hits on the Dnipro HPP. There is a hit to one support. The crane beams are broken. Infrastructural facilities were also destroyed and damaged. Vehicle traffic was blocked at the HPP dam. 10 private houses and more than 35 high-rise buildings were damaged. There is a dead person and previously 8 wounded, said the head of the regional administration, Fedorov. 3 more people are considered missing. Just remember this day and this night, and remember when you hear again from sources that the Kremlin is ready for a truce. It is not, especially since today even Peskov admitted that Russia is at war. The second day of the summit of EU leaders continues. Our partners discussed the transfer to Ukraine of dividends from the frozen assets of the Central Bank of the Russian Federation for the purchase of weapons. It is about 3 billion euros per year. As European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policies Josep Borrell reported, the leaders of the European Union reached a political agreement on the transfer of these funds for military support to Ukraine. This proposal was supported by all 27 countries, including Hungary. Now the decision needs to be worked out in working groups before it is formalized. Borrell also reminded that since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation into Ukraine, the European Union and its member states have provided military aid in the amount of 31 billion euros, and another 20 billion euros are planned for 2024. And this is not the final amount. Borrell stressed that as long as Ukraine receives military aid, Europe can feel safe.
I heard some voices saying, well, war is imminent. Well, thanks God, war is not imminent. We live in peace, we support Ukraine, we are not part of this war, we just support Ukraine, and we have to prepare for the future, increasing our defense capabilities, augmenting the defense capacity of our industry. But don't afraid people unnecessary. War is not imminent. What is imminent is the need of Ukrainians to support them. It's not an issue of going to die for Donbass. It's an issue of supporting Ukraine for them not being killed in Donbass or not being killed in Kiev when there is bombing.
This week it was also agreed that the European Union will allocate €5 billion within the European Peace Fund, which will also go towards the purchase of arms for Ukraine. The general support of the EU is essential, especially now when the decision on US aid to Ukraine is delayed. The countries of the European Union are looking for new ways to increase the supply of shells to the battlefield. Earlier, the Czech Republic announced an initiative to purchase 800,000 ammunition, which was joined by a number of countries. On the sidelines of the summit, they say that 800,000 is not the limit. At this summit, the leaders discussed the European program of the defense industry, the purpose of which is to increase the production of weapons and ammunition. Ukraine can also participate in this program. In order to activate this process, they want to make it easier for manufacturers to access loans. Participants of the summit met with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. One of the topics discussion is the work of the Ukrainian grain corridor in the Black Sea. Some participants announced their intention to seek a ban on the import of grain from Russia into the European Union. Russian grain is really becoming a problem, and not only an economic one, but also a political one. European farmers are dissatisfied with the fact that Russian grain enters the markets of the European Union, and it must be blocked. The United States called on Ukraine to stop attacks on Russian oil refineries. Financial Times write about this, with reference to 3 unnamed sources. Calls to stop the attacks were sent to the Security Service of Ukraine and the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine. What if this is not a sign of high professionalism of our soldiers? Do you know why Washington asks Ukraine not to attack Russian factories? Drone strikes could raise global oil prices and provoke retaliation. Washington is concerned that if Ukraine continues to strike Russian facilities, Russia could retaliate by attacking energy infrastructure that the West relies on. And we are not talking about our energy infrastructure, but about the pipeline of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which transports oil from Kazakhstan through Russia to the world market. After all, Russia remains one of the world's most important energy exporters, despite Western sanctions on its oil and gas sector. Oil products are one of the main sources of income for Russia. However, Ukraine can also be understood because one cannot be satisfied with the current efforts of the West to curb Moscow's energy revenues, especially since such strikes weaken Russian air defense on the front line and also bring the war closer to Moscow and demonstrate that the Kremlin's air defense, including those around the Kremlin, can be penetrated. After all, there have been at least 12 attacks on major Russian oil refineries since 2022 and at least 9 in 2024. This is not counting terminals, warehouses and other infrastructure. Such strikes on oil refining are an excellent example of asymmetric warfare, because the ground war, due to the lack of Western support, is currently unfolding negatively for Ukraine. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Olha Stefanishyna said that oil refineries on the territory of Russia are legal targets from a military point of view. She stated that Ukraine responded to such calls by achieving its goals and very successful operations carried out on the territory of the Russian Federation.
We understand the appeals of our American partners, while at the same time we are fighting with our capabilities, resources and practices that we have today. In NATO's understanding, closing the eye over Ukraine means, first of all, to destroy the infrastructure on the territory of the Russian Federation, which makes it possible to bomb Ukrainian cities, factories that make rockets. We operate according to the best NATO standards. Olha Stefanishyna, Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration of Ukraine at the Kyiv Security Forum.
It is clear that most of our partners are not interested in Russian resources disappearing from the market because it is very painful for the world economy. But we offer our partners other actions. For example, a real limitation of the Russian oil margin and a serious strengthening of the sanctions for non-compliance with these limitations. Otherwise, Ukraine simply has no choice. We have to attack the Russian economy. And this whole situation is payback for their fear of escalation. If Russia had suffered a quick defeat on the battlefield, it would probably not have been necessary to attack the Russian oil infrastructure at all. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated, comment, like and subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support is what really matters. Goodbye.